these people are like insane. I didn't know anything about political craziness until then.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
I'm still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too. Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another ridiculous and possibly necessary intro. If you're just listening to the audio, no problems. If you're watching the video on YouTube, might be a few issues. We had 3 cameras. One went down at the beginning, another went down in the middle. So you get about half of us in a group shot, and then in the last half you get our illustrious guest. And that's all, but that's okay.
Stephen Spinola. Hey, Stephen Spinola, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So what's the first music you remember loving as a kid?
It was the Beatles, Ticket to Ride, and I had a cassette tape that I put inside of like one of those. It was almost like a Home Alone thing, you know, where you could like record and press play and those things. And so I would like, yeah, I was trying to like play it and record. It had like 2 things you could put in it, and so I would make my own mixtape of like I had the Beatles and I had Elvis Presley, and that was basically it.
Nice.
And so, yeah, those were my 2 go-tos as a kid. I loved Elvis, loved the Beatles. Really loved Elvis, though, I think. Like,
What was the first Elvis song?
Definitely, what do you call you know, I can't even think of the words. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Right.
Yeah.
And then there was Jailhouse Rock.
Yeah.
Those were the 2. My dad used to play those in the car, and I used to be like, play it again. He'd be like, it's the radio. I don't know.
What's crazy about those songs is there's nothing on them, but they do rock. It's like there's barely any instrumentation. There's barely anything, but the recordings, if you listen to them now, they still fucking rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just classic rock, you know, and they really
probably
mean
the
it
most
when they say
classic.
that.
Some might say the first, and Little Richard aside, but
Right.
it's definitely
I
classic.
used to love Little Richard as well. Not like, I didn't know any of his music, but there was a movie called Mother Goose Rock and Rhyme. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was actually written by the woman from The Shining. What's her name? Can't even think of her name now.
Oh, I can picture her face.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we all know who you're talking
So
about.
she wrote it and she cast it with like a bunch of her acting friends, and there's like a bunch of really famous people in that movie, and it's actually still a good movie. I recently watched it.
Yeah.
And it's about like all of the Mother Goose rhyme characters are just like real life, and
yeah.
they live in rhyme world, and they all like, you know, interact and they live the rhymes. And there's like, you know, Mary Had a Little Lamb is the lamb is Woody Harrelson, and he like plays this like cigarette smoking lamb who just like takes over Mary's life, and he's like, hey Mary, give me some eggs, you know. He's just like a crazy guy, and so anyway, Little Richard is in that movie, and he plays the king, and he
Should have played the Queen.
I feel like this is vaguely familiar. I've seen this.
I haven't seen that one.
it was so good. It was from 1994, I want to say.
Yeah.
Maybe a little earlier, but
So were they in
or
costume,
91.
like the actual people, not
Yes.
just voiceover? So this is live action.
You wouldn't be able to know that it's Woody Harrelson. He looks like a lamb man thing.
I'm gonna have to look this up. It
It's
sounds
really
trippy,
good.
if nothing else.
It is super trippy. I watched it on acid recently,
Wow.
actually. And it was great. But yeah, Little Richard is in that, and I remember being obsessed with that scene because like he's playing the piano and he's got like all of his servants just like, you know, they're all dancing and everything. I loved it. So yeah.
Yeah.
And nobody's more punk rock than Little Richard, man.
That's
Gay,
true.
just effeminate dude in the deep South, and he didn't give a shit. It was great.
I have a fun Woody Harrelson story. So I met him in San Francisco because he's friends with my grandpa, and he just happened to be there at the time.
Yeah.
And I was there on the bus with my Aunt Amy, and, you know, we were just on the bus with Papa Willie for a week or something. And he comes on the bus, and first of all, like just a couple weeks before that, it was the first time I had seen Natural Born Killers. So when I saw him, his character in Natural Born Killers, have you seen that?
I probably have seen it. I'm having
Yeah, well,
trouble
he's killing
thinking
a
about
lot
it.
of people. It's a very scary character that he has in that movie. So I was just a little timid, but he was actually a cool person, and he was talking to all the family, and him and I actually made an arranged marriage between his daughter and one of my twin sons.
Oh, that's nice.
True. Yeah, true story.
You've been in touch? They're getting about that age.
Yeah, I haven't gotten in touch with him about it, but I'm sure you know, I'm sure it's still intact. We still have like at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, at least.
I think I've only heard cool things about Woody Harrelson. So yeah, that'd be a pretty cool interaction to
Yeah.
meet
Yeah.
him. That's really awesome.
And if he tries to back out, just get one of your sons to knock his daughter up.
And then he can't back out of it.
He could, but you're halfway home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll work on that. Anyway, okay, so Elvis and the Beatles, and then so talk about like middle school time. What were you listening to then?
Oh man, well,
What year were you born?
I was born in 1990. I'm pretty
Okay,
young.
yeah, you're super young.
Yeah, super young.
Okay, so
Is it still when you're going through junior high and high school, like
Britney
for
Spears,
us?
NSYNC,
Well,
that
not
was
even the
what you were
bands.
That
listening
was
to?
okay. So I was huge in sync. I actually
I
am.
bet you
I'm
were.
still a huge in sync fan.
Me too.
Yeah, like Chris Kirkpatrick. The fact that he like lives
met
near
him.
us is like so cool to
Have
me.
you met him yet?
No,
I
but
met him
know-
at Zany's actually.
See, that's the thing. I knew he went to Zany's once when I
Yeah.
was working there a bunch. Like I would just pray that he'd be in the crowd, and he never showed up for one of my shows, but it's okay. Yeah, NSYNC is like I was huge NSYNC fan. Like and NSYNC was when I was in like 3rd grade to like 5th, 6th grade maybe. They were pretty big.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then they stopped being big after like 2003. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
But middle school, I'd say 2000 to 2004.
Because you were singing the songs, right? Because you're a singer, kind of.
A little bit. Yeah, a little
When did you
bit.
start singing?
Hold on, let's get back to the
sorry,
music.
I'm sorry.
It's
One at
okay.
a time.
I don't know. I always used to like to sing along to songs. I guess like I didn't really start like singing the way that I do now until college, maybe after, because I started doing comedy, you know.
Yeah.
That all came with comedy, just performance, you know.
Right.
But
So you didn't perform before?
not really. Like in high school, I did a little bit, but not like on stage as much. I used to record songs at home, like with my friends, parody songs, lots of different parodies, and comedy songs. We would just
Yeah.
make up original comedy songs.
Yeah.
See, this is the generation gap because like he's at home with his friends in middle school or high school and go, well, instead of going out and playing or whatever, we'll record some songs at home. Like that wasn't an option, you know?
We
Yeah.
didn't have an option of anywhere to go do it live.
It's like the opposite. You've got
Yeah.
laptops that you can actually record on. You maybe knew a guy with some recording equipment somewhere, but if you were going to play, you had to go out and play. Or, we did a lot of time in the garage by yourself. But
Well, see, GarageBand, the app,
Right.
became big when I was in 8th grade.
oh, there you go.
So, like, my friend across the street got a Mac computer. He had GarageBand, and we used to just make GarageBand mixes of all, like, the loops that they have.
Yep.
And we would play it in his sister's car. She would drive us to school, and we'd make her play it the whole way to school, and she'd be like, this music sucks. Can you turn it off? And we'd be like, there's, like, those classic loops.
Yes.
Anyway, but that was, like, yeah, I used to love to, like, try to make music and stuff, and I still do a little bit. Now I write some original songs that are, like, not as funny. They're, like, serious songs about how bad my life has gone. But in middle school, though, I can tell you, I had such a crazy mix of everything that I liked, because, like, rap music, like, I didn't even know about rap music until middle school. So, like, my brother knew about Biggie Smalls, I remember. I was in...
Older? He's older
He's
brother?
older, and he had a friend named Paul Fields, and they came over. This kid, Paul, slept over one night, and I was in 1st grade. My brother was in 2nd grade with Paul, and we were trying to go to bed, and my brother was trying to pray before going to bed, and this kid kept saying, Hail Mary, full of grace, smack a bitch in the face. And he was saying the words to the Biggie song, and it had just come out, you know?
Yeah.
And me and my brother didn't know anything about that. So my brother ended up learning from him and learned more. And then my brother got kicked out of my house, actually, because he was smoking weed. And so when he left, I all of a sudden learned about, like, rap music. I don't know how it happened, but, like, I guess my friends were sort of into it. And
Yeah.
so, like, I remember at that point, that was when that song, like, Let's Get Retarded came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes. I was like, more of that, for sure. So I was, like, sort of into hip-hop stuff, a little bit, not really into, like, hardcore rap. But hip-hop stuff was, like, really connecting with me. And then I found out about, like, emo music. And there was, like, all these, like, girls that I really liked who liked emo music. So I was like, yeah, we'll just like that, too.
Yeah.
You know? So I was, like, really malleable. Like, anything that, like, yeah, if I saw that someone I liked something, I was like, yeah, I like that. That's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way it is back then. Now, I'm curious as to generation gaps. Like when I was coming up, your musical taste was like something you almost had. It was almost part of a gang. It was very important
Yeah.
with your not necessarily social like
height, but who your crowd was. You know, it's a very important.
Right.
What kind of music did you like? Was it still the same way coming up?
In like 9th grade,
Yeah.
10th grade,
Yep.
like once you hit high school, and especially because I was in a band, it was a lot like that, you know. But I was like super friendly with a lot of people who were like not into rock music at all.
Yeah.
What was your band called?
My band was called Second Story Up, and we were
Why did you name yourself Second Story?
no idea. It was actually a compromise, I believe. Like we had 2 different names that we wanted, and we just put them together.
So
And
Second Story and Up?
I don't actually know.
I like
what
Second
the 2
Story. I
things
like
were.
Up. Fuck it. We'll call it Second Story Up.
But I
Or
mean,
Story Up and Second?
the kid who led the band, there were these 3 kids who were in a band, and they needed a drummer, and they were at a Bowling for Soup concert at Rye Playland. I don't know if you remember that movie Big with
Yeah.
Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
At Rye Playland, when he goes up to that machine that has the guy Zoltar or whatever, Zoltan, that thing's still there. And they had a Bowling for Soup concert there. These kids had a freaking cardboard box that said, "We need a drummer," and they spelled it Neeb. And that just that struck me as like the funniest thing in the world. And I was like, I need to meet those guys. And so I went over and I was like, I play drums. Let's do a band. And they were like, cool, you can be our drummer now. And that was it. And I became the drummer of this like metal band called Second Story Up. It was so weird. And we had no singer. It was like just progressive metal. It was really weird.
Okay.
Going from
Nobody
like,
sang?
Nobody sang. Just going from like hip hop and emo music just straight into like progressive metal.
Did you guys play out at all, like in the neighborhood
I
or anything?
wanted to,
Yeah.
and I made a battle of the bands in my backyard
To
to host so that we could play live.
Yeah.
The
We've heard
guitarist-
comedians like a comedian putting a show together so he can get up and
Yes.
get up and do it.
I was always like that. I was like, yeah, if we want to do something, we got to do it ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
there's nowhere to do it. No one was going to let us
Yeah.
get on stage. We didn't have any
Now, where did you grow up? Did you say this already?
in New York.
New York, okay.
Yeah, Westchester County, New York. I was born in Long Island, grew up in Westchester County. And yeah, it was pretty awesome. And I remember Battle of the Bands in my backyard was super fun for me. But the guitarist, he was like so talented, like the most talent. His dad was like a famous guitarist. He's in some progressive metal band called Muto. And that's his last name. And it's this kid, Dave Muto. He was the guitarist, and he was so talented. I mean, like, he could shred like no one else. It was so crazy. For like a 9th grade kid, I remember being like, this is insane. You know, like, he's so talented. And, or maybe 10th grade at that point. And then he was afraid to play live. He hid behind the amp.
Yeah.
And so no one could see him playing. And he
Right.
like ended up screwing up some of the songs because he was so nervous. And I was just like, you know, and I wanted us to be famous, you know, I
Yeah.
wanted us to go play because I was like, we're so good, you know,
Yeah.
and the girls that we liked that were listening to us, they were like, you guys are so good, you're talented. And I was like, yeah.
First of all, it's impressive if you're in a progressive metal band and you had girls listening to you at
I
all.
know,
So
I
you were
know.
onto something there.
Well, we played covers too. So we played this one band called Thrice. I don't know if
Yeah,
you know them.
yeah.
We played a cover of theirs, which was like kind of an emo song. And then we also played like metal versions of songs.
Right.
So like, I don't know, it like clicked with certain people. They really thought it was cool. And we did too. We thought it was really cool.
But nobody sang.
Nobody sang. Yeah.
That's so
And then when we did get singers, it would be like a guest singer. Like
Yeah.
if we did have one of those covers that we were gonna play, we would have guest singer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Well, how did that stop? Why aren't you still in Second Story Up?
It stopped because we had creative differences.
How it always stops.
they straight up just took their amps and stuff from my house and never showed up again. And I was like, what happened? And they were just like, you just wanted to do like, you know, pop punk stuff, and we wanted to continue down this progressive metal path. Meanwhile, our bassist left us for another band that
Yeah.
played pop punk, and I was like, and he's playing live and he's doing what I wanted to be doing, so I was like, we should do more of that.
Yeah.
And then my bandmates were like, no, we kind of want to just play our stuff,
Where are
studio
they now?
stuff. Who knows? They lived in Portchester, New York. They're probably still there. I mean, Dave is probably playing guitar. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he's
Did y'all record music at all?
a little bit. I bet you I could find someone like,
Yeah.
what do you call? I can't even think of the names of those websites now. We were on MySpace back in the day, but there was another one, Pure
MySpace.
Volume.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
I think we might have been on Pure Volume, but maybe not because you might have had to pay to get that stuff on there. I don't even remember, but
I tried to find my old MySpace account the other day. It's there, but I can't get in.
Oh, that's
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I would have we should move back to MySpace.
Yeah.
It was the
I'm
best
down.
of them all.
I mean, something
done.
new is going to come along at some point.
That's true.
So we'll
I think
see.
everything is going to YouTube, honestly, just because it's the best way to get monetized.
They have created a lot of new social media aspects of YouTube recently.
See? Yeah. I think we'll be able to do everything from there.
But everybody's trying to do that. Even Elon's talking about bringing Vine back to Twitter to compete with TikTok.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really all kind of the same shit, just
Yeah.
packaged up differently.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm amazed that they can still keep coming up. I remember when I saw MySpace and then everybody got on this Facebook thing. And the big thing for me was like, it doesn't make any sense. It's ugly. You can't put anything up there. It's like, what is on your mind? And then some buddies, we were in a band and posted it on Facebook, and we had a bunch of people show up. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of people. I don't understand why people are on here or why. And now everybody, it's crazy.
Well, I remember Facebook, you had to be invited. Do you remember that?
Oh,
You
yeah.
had to have a high school,
yeah.
a verified high school student from a verified high school had to invite you to that high school's network. It was like a school thing from like 2004 to like 2007 or something.
And it's crazy because it was just invented to get Harvard dudes laid. That's all it was. They post where they are and people would know exactly where you were. And it's turned into this thing that split the entire world in half. And it was really just about getting Harvard guys laid.
Well, one weird thing about it was that the same girl who used to introduce me to like any new music that I found out about, her name was Melania Malavasos. I remember she knew all the best music before it was big. Somehow she was like in the forums and on Pure Volume all the time. She knew about like, I'm trying to think of this band's name now. I can't even think of it. God damn, it's going to be hard to remember, but The Fray. Do you remember The Fray?
yeah.
Okay, she knew about The Fray, but when they had less than 4,000 fans. And I was like, you're so cool. She was the coolest. And she invited me to Facebook. And I was like, this is loser shit. I'm not doing Facebook. I was like, Facebook is weird. The fact that it's like only our school. I was like, I don't need that. I'm on MySpace, whatever. And then 2007 came along and some girl wanted to fuck. And so that's how I got on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's when we started playing bands. That's why everything happens, you know. Dudes.
All girls.
Yeah, it's all chicks.
Whatever girls want me to do, I'm doing it. I smoked cigarettes for like 3 months because this girl did. And I was just like, yeah, I just wanted to hang out with her. So I was like, I'll
Yeah.
take cigarette breaks with you. I'd never smoked a cigarette in my life. I was like, and I didn't like it either. I'd be outside smoking with her, like, and I didn't know anything about cigarettes either. So I was smoking I was living in Montreal, smoking the Canadian version of Marlboro Reds.
Nice.
And it was just like so harsh. And I was just like, yeah, you're hot.
So if you're playing in bands, when did comedy come into the picture?
I always was into comedy. I mean, okay, so when I was 6 years old, it was my 6th birthday, actually, and my stepdad had rented Billy Madison on DVD. We had just gotten a DVD player. It was like the first DVD player. My stepdad is super rich, so he was like the first person to have a DVD player. And he rented from Blockbuster, he rented Billy Madison on DVD, and it was like a big deal to like see it on DVD, crystal clear. And I remember being like, I want to do that. Like whatever that guy is doing, Adam Sandler, just being silly. I just wanted to do that. And it was like, I didn't even think like Adam Sandler, the actor. I was like, I want to be Billy Madison.
Yeah.
You know, like, I want to be like a fucking retard, dude. I want to be so dumb. And that's what I told my mom. And I remember she gave me this, somebody gave me a book for my birthday where it was like, you can write in like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, Mom, how do you spell comedium? And I spelled it Comedium. I still have the book, actually. Yeah, and I always wanted to be a comedian. Yeah.
So when did you start doing? Did you start doing it in high school?
Like performance comedy, yeah. Like they had this thing where it was like they did like a Gong Show at my high
okay.
school, and I was
What's
like,
a Gong Show?
You've never? Oh yeah.
I don't know what that
there was
is.
an old ancient one in the
Yeah.
70s, and they brought it back.
Gene, the dancing machine, was like this guy who would come out and he would do like this dumb dance and stuff. So they were like, "Oh, you're gonna be that guy," and so like I would just be like this silly acting guy.
See, the Gong Show was basically a variety show where they had a host and 3 celebrity judges, and they'd come out and sing, dance, tell jokes, like literally anything. It got crazy.
It's like American Idol.
Yeah, but this is
Oh,
more
wait, that's
slapstick.
more singing.
This is just anything. Jugglers.
America's Got Talent.
Yeah, but
Yes,
this not.
but like not talent. Like it's like
The idea was like, most of these people were hacks.
Yes.
So there was a big gong, and if these guys were bombing, they would judge them if they got through their whole bit.
Yeah.
But if any one of the celebrities got crazy, they'd go up and hit a big gong, and that means you're just done. You know, it's like giving them the hook.
And this is actually bringing back really bad memories for me because I was actually in a band before Second Story Up. I forgot about this.
Well, let's add this.
There was a kid named Fabio Mataloni who was also an incredible guitar player. And there was another kid, Rob Bonacore. These were all Italian kids. And then there was Andy Pang, who was an amazing bassist. And they were like in a band together and they needed a drummer. So I was their drummer. And we played all cover songs. We played Rufio. Do you remember Rufio?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we played some Rufio. We played like other weird like punk rock stuff, like pop punk rock stuff. And we did the Gong Show playing White Lights by Rufio. And I remember opening up with like that sick drum beat. It's like, and then the guitars come in. And right when the guitars come in, this fucking asshole, he was a senior in our high school and he was one of the judges for the thing. And I actually like this guy now. We're like we've become friends over the year. I haven't seen him in about a decade now, but after high school, we ended up becoming friends.
Right.
And this guy gonged us because he was just like this rock guy. He was just like he was the coolest rock guy in school. And like, you know, he just fucking saw us up there and you know what he said to us? He's like, yeah, you guys just weren't moving around at all. We were like, we didn't do 30 seconds of the song, man.
We were
I was like,
leading
you
up to it.
didn't. And I ended up crying in the back of the auditorium. So sad. The girl.
What grade were you in when?
9th grade.
Okay, so
This was my first year in high
freshman
school.
year.
Freshman.
The senior rock guy just gonged
Senior
you.
rock guy gonged us, and we practiced so hard, and we were so good, and I was so good at that part too. I remember that drum. I still play that drum beat. If I get on a drum set, I'm like, yeah, that's the drum beat I'm playing. 'cause the
Probably
drum
had
beat
like
fucking rules.
parts halfway in the song, like I can't wait to get to that part and
Yeah,
put my
dude.
fill in. People are gonna go
Oh
crazy.
my god! And then this girl came and like consoled me in the back of the auditorium, and I ended up losing my virginity to this girl. Not that day,
Right
obviously.
then.
Yeah, right then.
I was still in tears.
She
I
saw
cried
me
even
crying,
harder
and she
afterwards.
was like, she used the tears as lube. It was awesome.
I was crying even harder afterwards.
It was bad. and
Auditorium sex.
Yeah, we both were crying at the end.
Oh god, it was so awful. That was like the worst memory ever. I tried to suppress that, and then just saying Gong Show just brought it back.
Well, I'm glad we could bring that back for you. Yeah.
That means dude,
Relive
it
the
was
trauma
such a,
again.
It was such a bad experience, and then they did the Gong Show every year after that, and I was like, and then from then on, I was the comedy act, and I was like not doing music at the Gong Show. I remember my band was like, "Oh, do you want to do the Gong?" Like in 11th grade, my band was like, "Oh, you want to do the Gong Show?" I was like, "No." I was like, "We're not doing that. That's some nonsense." And actually, I did end up playing drums for a band in the Gong Show that year, 11th grade. I ended up playing guest drums for a band, but I wouldn't let my own band play.
Right.
Because I was like, I don't want to be embarrassed, you know?
I guess the punk rock movies just keep playing it. They just keep gonging. And you're like, nope, not stopping. Not gonna stop. Just
I
keep
wish
going
we
through.
did that. I wish we were smart
You'd have
enough.
been the coolest
you know?
ninth graders ever.
Oh man, we
Yeah,
really
yeah.
would have. That's a great idea, man. I'm gonna just imagine it went
Just
like
start
that.
slamming
now.
Start
harder. I can't
reprogramming your
hear
brain
you.
for that memory.
Yeah, because that actually would have been awesome. But yeah,
Take
you know.
2. You want to tell the story about the?
So I remember the Gong Show. My in 10th grade, I had friends who were seniors, and I remember it was just like pure comedy. We wrote a bunch of comedy bits where it was like, so we were supposed to be like the Gene Dancing Machine act, where we would keep coming out in between acts and doing just some little thing. So we wrote a bunch of like comedy skits to do that lasted less than 30 seconds. That was the rule. You had 30 seconds on stage.
Oh,
so you
just Mean Gene Dancing Machine in the old Gong Show. It was just this black dude, and they just call his name out, and he would just come out and do these silly dances for like 30 minutes, then walk away.
30 minutes?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Okay.
And they were just like really bad dances. They weren't like anything good.
Yeah.
And he had a cane and he would just be like, So anyway.
I'll find. I'm sure it's all over
something
YouTube.
to look at?
It's all over YouTube. I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll find it.
Yeah.
In between acts, something to look at. In
Not
between?
even really in between acts, just I guess
Just randomly.
Yeah, he
It
would
was
just
just
all
like
of a sudden he
randomly.
would just go, Mean Gene Dancing Machine. And then the host of the Gong Show is a whole nother story because he claims he was part of the CIA.
Yeah, you
and
remember
all
that
this
movie?
stuff.
Did you ever see the movie?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
God,
read the
I
book
love
and then
that
saw the
movie.
movie. What was it called?
I can't think of it, but I can tell you like the last line of the movie. He's like, I wrote a new game show. He's like, where I don't remember what it is now, but he's like damn it, now I can't remember anything. My brain just stops working right when I start telling these stories. Anyway, the last line of that movie still gives me chills because it's something about how like these three people have like no care for humanity and they just like they basically like they fight each other to the death in a game show and the winner gets a refrigerator.
Chuck Barris was his name. I'm sure there's like. I'll send you some stuff.
The guy's brilliant. He created so many game shows in the 70s that were like really, really big game shows. Anything you're watching on the Game Show Network, like he probably created it,
Yeah.
But yes, anyway, I remember writing those skits in the Gong Show, getting lots of laughs. One of my skits was a fortune teller or whatever, like a medium, and I picked a guy from the audience, but it was an audience plant. He was a friend of mine, and the whole bit was me guessing a number that he thought of between 1 and 3. But it had to be between. It couldn't be 1 and it couldn't be 3. It had to be a number between 1 and 3. So that was my first bit. It got a nice laugh from the high school kids. The other one was the invisible bench. That's like I didn't write that one. We stole that one from the internet. That's like you get a guy to come out and he says, "Oh, I'm sitting on a bench." And then some other guy says, "Oh, I'm sitting on the bench," and you're just sitting in midair,
Right?
And then another guy comes out and he sits a little further away. And he says, "But the bench is over here," and then the other guys fall. So it's a little
So
bit, pretty dumb. But that was the beginning of my comedy career, I guess, my
Yeah.
performance career. It was just doing those skits.
So were you off music at that point? Once you start doing those skits, or you're like, maybe that'll be easier. It's just me and not have to worry about a band, or did you have designs on either one coming out of high school?
It was both. Yeah,
Yeah?
It was so both. I didn't think comedy could actually be a thing you could do.
Right.
Like I thought I was just having fun with my bandmates. I don't know if you remember. God, now I can't think of anybody's name. There was this one band. It's all downhill from here.
Oh yeah.
It's all downhill from here.
I don't know that. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't think of
I
it.
can't think of them. But that band put out DVDs where they would go on tour and they were doing all types of fun comedy stuff in between the shows and, just pranking each other and, on the bus and stuff. And so I remember me and my friends who were like really into music, we were also really into just being silly because we were like, that's all part of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Being in a band.
And then when I started taking drugs, senior year, I took mushrooms for the first time and watched the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour. And I was like, oh, wow, they're just a couple friggin' silly comedians too. It's true. I was like, these guys, all they want to do is joke around when they're not doing the music. So I was like, that's just part of the lifestyle, So it became part of what I was doing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the Beatles can do it, anybody can do it, right?
That's how I thought of it, literally. I was like, I'm going to be the next Beatles. Me.
So how did you get into, how did you first start doing comedy outside of high school? Like first open mics or first time to go, maybe I will go out and try it in front of other people, strangers?
Well, okay, so I was dating that girl who I lost my virginity to.
Right.
I was in college. She was in Michigan, and I was in Montreal. So we were in different countries, pretty far apart, and I was like, couldn't handle long distance. So I was like, I need to just date somebody else. So I ended up in, like, I didn't cheat on her, but I took a girl on a date to a comedy club, and the girl actually didn't make it. She called out sick right before the show, but I got tickets to the comedy club.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to take this girl to the comedy club, blah, blah, blah. She called sick, so I was like, okay, she's not coming, so I'm going to take my friends, and we're just going to go do acid and go see this comedy show. So we took a bunch of acid, went to the comedy show, and I'll never forget, I remember like so many details of this show. There's this guy, Bobby Mayer. He's like really famous in England now. He was on stage. There's this guy, Dave Mirage, who's like in L.A. He's like not as famous now. There's a guy, Andy Hendrickson was the headliner. he's not famous at all now. It's so funny. It went from like the opener became the most famous, the guy, the feature act, like not so famous, and the headliner just like nobody knows who this guy is. So I was on acid watching this show, being like laughing my ass off the whole time. Like my face hurt so much from laughing. Like my cheeks like were like tight from like the laughter. And the guy at the end of the show, he was like, if you want to come back on Monday, you could try doing comedy. Like he just announced it. He was like, we're doing the open mic on Monday and you can try doing it. Little did I know, it was like a booked open mic. The way that works is you have to call a few days before. They put you on for 5 minutes or whatever. And they don't put everyone that calls. Like you call and you request a spot. You might get it. You might not.
Right.
I didn't call, just showed up. And I was like, I'm ready. And they were like, who are you? And I was like, I was here on Saturday, and you guys said, and I was like, I'm from New York, and I'm ready to do it. And so they thought that I was from New York visiting.
Right.
So they were like, oh, we better just let this guy on stage.
Got a New York comic here. We got to let him in.
Yeah. So I did pretty good my first time. Not great, but like not bad. And the host was like, yeah, you got to come back and keep doing it. He's like, you're really funny. You got talent. His name was Faisal Butt. Good guy.
Did you have material written before, like for a while before that?
No.
Just go...
I wrote it like a couple days before.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 2 days before. It was Saturday night, so no, a day before. So I wrote it on Sunday, went on Monday. And my jokes were like, I think my first joke was that like I lived in the Montreal ghetto. And so I used to wear like a flat brim Phillies hat. And my joke was that the hat was ghetto or something. I don't know. It was like dumb. Didn't make any sense. But somehow I got laughs. I must have said some stuff that got laughs. I do remember getting laughs, and I do remember the host telling me that I had talent. And he was like, and you do have to come back. And I don't know if he was saying that as like hazing, as like a joke. Like, oh, yeah, come back because you're going to fucking bomb soon. You know?
Right, yeah.
But he invited me back. And I came back the next week, and they were like, we thought you were from New York. You have to call and sign up. You can't just show up and do the show. And I was like, okay. So that was it. I never stopped calling. I called every week, tried to get on. And then, that was a crazy stage of my comedy career, just like on so many drugs, like just skipping school, never going to school. I was studying physics at McGill University. Mm-hmm. So like, I like to say that I'm smart, right? But like, I never went to class, never did anything. I cheated my whole way through college. I just looked up all the answers online. This is when like being on everything started to come online. Mm-hmm. 2008 to 2012 is when like everything started coming online. So our teachers had no idea that like all the answers to all the questions they were asking are posted by somebody else at another university. So like I didn't have to do any work, and I just spent my whole college like from second year, and I did end up spending 5 years in college. I was supposed to be done in 3 because I went in with like credits. Right. But I was so like into comedy that I would not go to class, and I would like fail random classes. So I ended up 5 years in school.
Fuck, I'm so mad I missed that era of college.
Yeah, it was pretty great. We could just look up the answer
so
exactly.
Easy.
We were still taking computer classes to learn how to use fucking computers. Yeah. Oh man, that would have been nice.
So, how did you make it from Montreal to here? How did that happen?
Well, when I left Montreal, I went back to New York to live with my family and stuff. And then I lived in New York City doing comedy for a while. I bought an RV right out of college, actually, because I got in a car accident during college, and I ended up winning a court case. So I got some money, and then I bought an RV and traveled the country trying to do, like, whatever I could comedy-wise. And I stopped in, like, a bunch of different awesome cities, but Nashville, Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Sedona, Arizona. I picked like one city on every corner of the United States, Yeah. And I was like, those are the most awesome places to live. I was like, if I can live in one of those cities, that would be so cool. So I finally found a girl who was like ready to move out of New York City. And I was like, let's just move anywhere, to one of these places. Let's just get out of New York and let's just friggin' do it. And we wanted to do Pittsburgh because it was close, but it's just kind of sucks there compared to here.
It's
like,
really cold there all the time.
Yes. And it's not even just cold. It's also like gray sky a lot of the time. And like the rain is just like brutal. People think that Seattle has really bad rain. I've experienced way worse rain in Pittsburgh and been way more depressed. Yeah. So I was like, Nashville or Sedona are the ones that I wanted to do. And Sedona was just too far and too expensive. And this was it. It turned out to be an incredible investment, just buying a house here. And like, yeah, I've been living here for 5 years now. My house price is like doubled.
Right,
And like,
right.
yeah, everyone's pretty cool here, you know? It's just like, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
And it's good to tour from here too, because we say it all the time, you're 10 hours away from damn near everything
like right
besides
in the
Texas
middle.
and California. You can get to everywhere.
Yeah, people don't realize how central this is.
They don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. About 14 hours to, a little more to Denver, about 15 hours to like Boston, 11 hours to Tampa. It's like, yeah, it's great. Those are the only places I really would want to go anyway. So.
Yeah. So how are the parents when you tell them you go into physics major?
My parents really believed in me going into college. I ended up going to Canada, though, and to Montreal because weed was half price there, and so was school.
Oh, nice.
School costs only $15,000 a year there. And I was getting scholarships to other schools, but like even with my scholarships, it would still cost more to go to like Tulane.
Plus
or
the
to
weed
go-
was twice as expensive.
And you'd go to jail if you smoked in New Orleans.
That's for
You
sure.
know, it's
Yeah, it's more
incarceration for 4 months if you get caught.
Strange.
Yeah.
New Orleans is strange about that. I don't know if it's still that way, but yeah.
Yeah,
There
I
was
think
some-
it's a little less
the
now,
harshest
but-
weed penalties of all, and I mean they party in New Orleans. It's
I
crazy.
know, it was crazy. And when I went to visit, I had so much fun partying there, and I got super drunk, and but nobody had weed, and I was just like, damn, this is just so weird. It's just not me, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I didn't go there, and then I also had University of Binghamton in New York because if you get a scholarship for a state school, it was like super cheap, but it still ended up being around the same price. And so McGill is like the Harvard of Canada. It was top 20 in the world for sciences. So I was like, yeah, I'll just go there, get a degree in physics, I'll get a sick job, and everything will be awesome. It's just not how things turned out. You know, I hated physics once I got there. I was just like so bad at it compared to like everyone else. Like they were like literal geniuses, you know? And so I was like failing out. I started as an advanced math and physics major because I was like super good at math. In my high school, I finished every single math class available and had to take classes at the local community college because I was like all that was available if I wanted to keep learning math. Otherwise, I would have had to take a year off of math. So I took Calculus 3 in my senior year of high school. I was like a genius, you know? And then I went to college and I was like, no, I'm not a genius. I was like, Americans are not smart at all. I was like, these kids were from France, Canada. There was actually a girl from Iran that I met. That was a weird one. This was like at, you know, the end of all that stuff with like the war in Iraq and everything. So there was a girl from Iran and she couldn't even study physics at my school. How crazy is that? They wouldn't give her a visa to study physics at McGill University. They were like, if you want to live in Canada, you cannot study physics. Because they were worried that she was going to like bomb something.
Blow up some shit.
Yeah, how crazy.
That's crazy.
Weird times, you know?
Yeah, man.
And so I remember being there with all these foreign kids that was so foreign. It seemed so European living in Montreal. It was so cool. And just like smoking weed all the time, doing physics on and off, mostly comedy, a little bit of acid here and there, some mushrooms every once in a while. Lots of cool concerts too. So many good like that's another thing. I kept changing my musical genres all the way up until college, and in college like electronic music became super popular, and like DJs were really popular, like that one guy Avicii or whatever. Yeah, he would come to Montreal and it would be like everyone was like, oh, we're going to see Avicii at Club Met or whatever, and I was like, oh, cool. And I would just go and I was like, whatever, I don't really know about this, but I was like, yeah, this is what we listen to now. It's like we're all electronic music people.
We watch a guy with a laptop.
Yeah,
live.
Justice. Do you remember Justice?
No.
There was a band. They were like a electronic rock band. They had really cool songs. Trying to think of some other ones, but yeah, like I loved Montreal. Loved living in Montreal. I wouldn't have traded that up for the world. And then like by the time I had gotten through like 5 years of living there, and I had like dated some girls there and stuff, I was like, you know, I've had enough. I'm trying to go back to the States now and do some other stuff.
So did you have to have a conversation with your parents at some point, like physics isn't for me and I'm going to do comedy?
So I got in that car accident in the summer after my first year in school, and after my second year in school. Yeah, it was after my second year, and I had just started comedy, and like I remember telling my parents like, yeah, like this is what I'm gonna do. Like I'm really funny. Like you don't understand. Like people think I'm funny, and they actually wanted me to stay home after the accident. They wanted me to not go back to school, and they actually stopped paying for school. My dad ended up paying. My parents are divorced, so my mom, my stepdad stopped paying for me. They kind of like cut me off, and they were like, if you don't want to live with us, you don't get to be part of the family because you're just unhinged, you're crazy, you're out there doing drugs and whatever, and we know you're doing it. Because I admitted it to them. I was like, yeah, I'm having fun doing drugs, doing comedy. I'm meeting all types of people that I would never meet if I didn't do this stuff, you know? And yeah, they cut me off. They were like, I didn't talk to my parents for about 5 years.
Gnarly.
Yeah, crazy. And then, I talked to my dad still, but even he was just like, just finish college, please. And just... he's like, I don't care what you do, just don't die.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was funny because he was a Supreme Court judge in New York State at the time. So he just wanted me to just not be in the news. He's like, please, just
don't die in a bathtub with some
he's
hooker.
like, just don't get me in trouble. Don't ruin my career. And I used to do a joke about that, how like I just wanted to become famous enough doing comedy that would have ruined his career.
When did the parody songs come into play?
That's a funny story, actually. Okay, so there's a comedian named Henry Phillips. Do you know who Henry Phillips is?
Yes.
He's got a few Emmys, or is it Emmys or Grammys? I don't remember what he has.
Grammys for music, right?
For musical comedy. And he's written these like amazing original comedy pieces. And he does like he does a live show, like a 45-minute to an hour show, just like a few jokes in between, but like all these like great songs that he wrote. And he's also written a bunch of songs for other people. But he made a movie called Punching the Clown. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I haven't seen it, but I hear it's the best version or the best depiction of stand-up and being on the road ever.
And it's so real.
Yeah.
And it's his
I've gotta see
story.
it.
And it's like it's him starring in his own story, reenacting all of the things that he went through. And it's so beautiful. And there's this one character in the movie named Stupid Joe. And he sings parody songs, and everybody hates Henry Phillips, but they love Stupid Joe. Right. And he's just like, he can't stand Stupid Joe. And Stupid Joe does one parody song where he says, there was nothing I could do. I totally ripped a big fart. And so I was actually on acid. I don't know if Faisal was, but that guy who hosted the show when I did my first open mic, he was in my apartment visiting from Toronto. He had a kid at the time, and he would like try to get away from his family for like a weekend. And he would come just smoke weed in my apartment. So we were watching this movie, I remember. Or maybe he actually opened for Henry Phillips, I think, and we hung out with Henry Phillips. And then we went back to my apartment and we were like, let's watch this movie. So we watched it. We saw that scene. And like, I don't know, we were just like totally like understanding like what was going on, you know, like this one guy getting all this attention who just sucked and was being a hack and was just so bad, you know, and something about that clicked with me, and I was like, why am I doing stand-up comedy that like, yes, certain people like it, but like everybody likes bad parody music. Like everybody likes that.
Except other comics sometimes.
Except other comics. Other comics hate that I do this. I have no friends in comedy, probably because I do that bit. I do a 15 to 20 minute bit that's just me singing parody songs, and all they are just like parody music songs that can be used as television commercial jingles.
Do your Papa Willie one.
Oh, as I say, I did.
So you can give an example.
That's a funny story too. So this is the one that I actually wrote recently.
Oh my God! And I sent it to my grandpa.
I know, and that's the funny part about it is that she sent this. She sent a video of me doing.
Let's back up and start with how it came about.
I forgot I was tipsy.
It's okay. Well, she sent a video of me doing this parody to her grandpa, and he responded like, "Okay."
Sounds about right. Love you, Papa.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he said. He said, "Okay, love you."
Don't feel bad. I've seen a lot of texts for questions, and that's a lot of the responses I've seen back.
I thought that was the funniest thing. I showed that to a bunch of people, and they were like, "That's perfect. That's like the best response like ever. Like he just doesn't care about your parody at all." But I've expanded the bit so much. So the first one that I wrote, I was dating this girl. I was actually on that road trip, the RV trip. And I wrote a few of them in the RV, just like a few random ones. I wrote, like Febreze, I believe. I wrote that one was probably the first one I ever wrote. And it was, don't stop Febrezing.
Right.
Hopefully you'll stop sneezing. Yeah, spring nice, fresh linens. Oh, oh. And so that like started it. then I dated this girl from Wisconsin. I took her to Panama on a vacation. I met her on that road trip, and we were in this mall. They had like an American mall in Panama where they had all these stores. So I started just like seeing the names of stores and then turning them into a parody just to make her laugh, you know? And then she was laughing so hard, I was like, I better write some of these down. So one of them was Forever 21. I want to be forever 21. Don't you really want some jeans and leathers and T-shirts and sweaters? And it's like, they're not funny. But the reason they're funny is because they're so bad.
Right.
And because they're so lame and so dumb, that's what makes them good. And so, like, I just picture Stupid Joe singing every single one of them in my head when I do them. And when comedians get mad that I do them, I'm like, you're Henry Phillips. Right. I'm like, you're going to make it. There's this one guy, David Hetty, I used to do shows with. He's from Montreal. And I remember he asked me to open for him in New Jersey. So I drove like an hour and a half to do this show. And he's like, can you do 30 minutes before I go up to do an hour? There was like 5 or 6 people in the room. Like nobody came to this show. And I went up and I did the parodies, and they were like dying. The people were dying laughing at these parodies because they're so bad. And it's and you do enough of them, and people are like, "Oh my God, he's still doing them. There's more." Right. You know. And this guy, he's like a friend of mine, you know, at the time, and he took his phone out and was like, "Get off the stage." He was just like, "I don't want any of this before I'm going up." He's like, I don't want people enjoying this. He's like, if you went up and bombed for 30 minutes, that would have been better.
It does keep going. It's fun. It's fun that it keeps going. It's like the Family Guy thing that it keeps going and going and going. Like you're like, he can't possibly have another parody song, and it's just another and another.
It's one of those
and
things
another.
that's funny and gets unfunny, and it goes so long it's funny. It's like a Norm Macdonald bit.
Again.
You know,
Right. It gets funny again.
Well, certain people enjoy the whole thing. Certain people are just fun, you know. But if you're like into art and comedy, and you have a real brain for that stuff.
Yeah.
You probably hate it.
If you're a craftsman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. You know what I mean? Like, I get it.
Plus, it's probably got to drive them crazy, the craftsmen, when you do it and it starts killing. And they're
That's
like,
what they
fucking
hate.
idiots.
No,
Why do they love this shit?
People
It's
hate
so
that.
weird.
Comedians cannot stand to see other comedians get laughs at things that they don't think are good.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm that way too. There's a lot of comedians that I see, and I'm like, what he's doing is fucking garbage. It's totally elementary, derivative of some other shit I've already seen. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and I'm not going to laugh at it. And the fact that these people are laughing at it means that they don't know anything about comedy.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's parallel with music. You see somebody that's hugely popular in musician, like, how the fuck do people love insert artist here?
Exactly.
What is it? These people are idiots, you know?
Exactly.
But then I think about it, I'm like, I'm not a fan of hugely popular things most of the time. So I'm like,
once it gets popular, I stop being a fan usually. That's
so if you're doing
how it is.
something, people are like, why aren't the masses coming here? I'm like, well, shit, I don't really like the stuff the masses like anyway.
Exactly.
Who am I?
Yeah. I'm the same way, man. Listen, I had to like learn to like normal things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like coming from like pop punk progressive metal bands and like being super like into like the music we're playing and like how technical it was, having a double bass drum, being able to use a double bass drum. If I'd heard music that didn't have double bass at one point, I was like, oh, you fucking loser drummer here doesn't even know how to play drums, you know?
Yeah.
Ringo, in high school and college, I thought Ringo was the worst drummer of all time.
Every youngster goes through that. If you're listening to Rush or anything progressive, you're like, AC/DC, fucking Ringo, you know, all this, like, they're just, and then you get older and you're like, oh,
No, they're
okay.
fucking good.
I get it.
They
He's
fucking
one of the
kept it
greatest
going.
ever. Yeah.
Like anyway, I don't know. It's like being normal is something I had to learn to do, and I'm still not that normal because there's still like things that normal people really like even Taylor Swift. She's gotten too big for me now, where people like just love everything she does now, right?
No, listen, I'm not a huge Swiftie, but because I mean, some of them are like, just like some wackadoos, but I'm not, no shade to those crazy
I'm gonna
Swifties.
make a clip out of this.
But it's fine. It's fine.
No, the clip's done.
But I have her
But I do
music
like
on vinyl
Taylor.
up to 1989,
Yeah.
and then I stopped
I
because
have
I
much
was like,
respect for her,
I don't know
yes.
what happened. Like the music
How
just
come no
stopped clicking
Taylor
with me.
parodies?
That's a good question.
Too much respect.
Well, I challenge
Way too
you,
much respect for
Stephen
her.
I do have
Spinola.
a lot of respect
I
for
do
her.
too.
That's the thing. I don't know if and I live in Hendersonville
Oh,
too.
interesting
so
that
it's
you have one
kinda-
of my grandpas, so not much respect for him.
I mean, come on, Willie Nelson, Taylor Swift.
I didn't sing it yet. I'll do that one. It's on Imodium. Just can't wait to take solid loads again. Wipe my butt when I can do things out my end. I can't wait to get on Imodium. And I mean, honestly,
She's just standing here
The
perform
melody is
that at the
I just stand in the front.
in the front in the gift shop.
I usually just come up with them pretty spontaneously. I don't try to come up with them. Like they come to me. I'm listening to a song, and
It's a channel.
it just washes over my brain. I don't know what happens,
It's
but
from
like
Great Spirit. It's a channel.
Yeah, it's not me.
Yeah.
Someone else is putting these songs in my head.
Exactly.
So I can't like just force one of them, like I've tried and it's not easy. There's one comedian actually gave me one. I never take suggestions either. Never. Everyone's suggestions are fucking awful. They're terrible.
I just suggested Taylor Swift, though.
Well, you didn't like give me the
song
song.
goes like this.
Yeah.
Here's the joke.
The comedian, his name is Chance Willie. He's in town.
I met Chance.
You know
Chance.
Chance. He's a nice guy.
I played in bands with his uncle.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Not
that's-
in bands, but in bands together.
Oh, yeah,
the
around.
rock scene, yeah.
He's
Anyway.
a nice boy, and he had a song.
Funny guy, too.
Very funny. He had a song for me where it was, what's that? Old Town Road?
Yeah.
Remember that one? So it was, dang, how does it go? Something about. I know how the song goes. No, I'm trying to think of the parody. It was something about some bronzer or something. It was like some tanning thing, and then it was. Dang it! Now I can't think of what it is. Oh God, I hate having blank brain today. Anyway, so he gave me one that I used. I rarely ever use anybody's suggestions. So they do come to me just like a channeling. I'll be driving and listening to the radio, and that's when it hits me.
We
usually.
do that in the van a lot of times driving, just coming up with songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had Raelyn to the tune of Jolene. Raelyn, 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 Raelyn. I see you got some jizz upon your chin. Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
You can use that one.
Oh, yeah, you can have that
The way
one.
that you just
She's
said
like,
it,
yeah, no, the jizz on my
I
hand.
remember the jizz on my chin.
Yeah. You're welcome to use that one if you want. Hey, Chance Willie was at the one parody song we did at the
Yeah.
Josh Wolf show. He was there for that one.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny.
Steven's been at a few of the ones that I've done. I mean, I've only done comedy, I think, 6 times now, and you've been at 4 or 5 of them. And do you remember what the first thing you said to me after the first time you saw me?
I said that you should come back and keep doing it for sure.
No.
No?
That's great.
No.
I can't.
You said your jokes were funny, but you didn't have very many of them.
Oh yes, you only went up for like 3 minutes the first time I saw you. So I was
I
like,
remember you telling me that. This is the. I thought it was the
I
funniest
thought
fucking
it was
thing
funny
I've ever heard.
too.
And I was like, well, it's true.
You're funny. You didn't have a lot. So it's just facts.
it's funny. Before this, you were like, don't worry about having a filter or anything. I've never had a filter. I'm like autistic. I just say what happens up here.
Okay, so will you tell us your story about your Uber story? You told it, I think, one night a couple weeks ago. Your Uber
About
story.
driving Steven Tyler,
Yeah.
that one.
Maybe.
I don't know. I've driven a few celebrities. I have plenty of Uber stories. Uber was like the worst time of my life.
Really? You're
Yeah.
not doing it anymore?
No.
Let's have at least one good Uber story.
Yeah, give us a good Uber story.
So I was like, the reason I drove for Uber was because I had just moved here, and I was like, I used to trade stocks and crypto and all types of stuff. I still do, but not as much. And at that time, because I bought the house and like I paid off my car, I was like, I didn't have so much to be trading with. So I was like, let me just get a regular job, a little extra side income while I'm doing comedy. So I got this job driving for Uber. I mean, you don't get the job, you just sign up. There's no fucking interview. It's perfect. So I was like an amazing Uber driver too. Like I learned the city very quickly. I'm obviously like fun to talk to and whatever. And the no filter thing makes people laugh a lot. So people in my back seat were cracking up or giving me 1 star based on, whether, how conservative they were. I drove a few celebrities like a few times. It was like, usually people think that would be cool, but it's like not that cool. You know how they say never meet your heroes?
Yeah.
It's so true. Literally every hero I've ever met has been like a brutal nightmare.
Disappointing.
Super brutal
God,
disappointment.
sounds like when I met her grandpa.
That is not true.
Fucking horrible.
Don't spread those rumors.
I'm kidding.
I opened for Gilbert Godfrey one time. It was like the worst time of my life.
Oh no.
He's dead.
Yeah, I'm so glad he's dead. No, I'm just kidding. R.I.P. But I drove Steven Tyler one time. That's true. I also drove well, I'll tell that story is that I picked him and his girlfriend Amy up. I don't know if they're still dating, but Amy was the one who requested the ride, and she spelled her name Aimee.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I already hate her because that's not how you spell Amy.
Right.
Or you hate her mom, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I hate somebody. I hate my heart because of this woman's name. So I picked them up, and I see that it's like this young girl, and this like old lady, and this really fat guy. And so like the fat guy sits next to me in the front seat, and then the old lady and this girl Amy get in the back. And I hear a voice behind me that doesn't sound like an old lady at all, because it's not an old lady. It's Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. Dude looks like a lady. Very true. It looks like a decrepit witch, right? He had his blouse like tied up. So it was like he was wearing women's clothes, and then he like smelled amazing. Like he smelled like
Burning incense.
No, it was like some perfume. It was like he smelled wonderful. I would have had sex with him if he was actually a woman. And so he is in the back.
If he was an actual old lady.
Yeah, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, oh my God, it's Steven Tyler. and Brick House was on the radio and he's like, hey man, turn it up. And I was just like, okay. Yeah,
turn it up.
Kind of like that. And then I turn it up and he's like, what are you, a bitch? Turn it up. And I was like, and I just cranked it all the
Easy,
way
Steven
up.
Tyler. Calm
He
down.
was really aggressive. And so then he made me turn it down because he wanted to get a vegan cheeseburger. He's like, you think we could pull over at this place and get some vegan cheeseburgers and then you can come back around and pick us up? And I was just like, yeah, sure.
And that's where I lost my erection.
But that's not how Uber works at all. Right? I'm going to drop this guy off. I'm never going to see him again. You know what I mean? But I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I just want 5 stars. Amy and the guy was like his manager, and they were like, oh, we have a meeting at the Hermitage Hotel. We have to get there. We're 30 minutes away, and the meeting's in 25 minutes. We're already going to be late. He's like, all right, fine, you're right. Vegan cheeseburgers was a stupid idea. And I'm like holding in my laughter, like so hard. I'm like for 2 reasons. First of all, because vegan cheeseburgers is the dumbest fucking idea I've ever heard in my life. But second of all, because it's Steven Tyler, just like complaining like a baby. He was like, you're right. Vegan cheeseburgers was a stupid idea. And it was just like so funny. It was so funny. And then he spent the rest of the time on a phone call with somebody talking about like all types of stuff in his personal life. And I'm super open about everything I heard on that phone call. He said he had termites at one of his houses, right? And he goes, hey, man, you think we could get rid of the termites without killing them, man? I was just like, no, Steven Tyler, no, you can't do that. I was like, I'm a freaking Uber driver comedian, and I could have freaking told you that. You know what I mean? So I was just like trying not to laugh this whole car ride. It was so funny. And then, and it was actually like the day before he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. So he was talking about like all the conspiracy theories that he was going to bring up on Joe Rogan. It was like the coolest car ride ever. Wow. And then we get him to the Hermitage Hotel. He gets off the phone as he's getting out of the car, and he tries to make a joke to me. And he tries to go like, he says, hey, just so you know, I wasn't on the phone with anybody. I was just pranking you. And I was like, all right.
Well done, Steven Tyler.
I was like, all right, we all believe you. You know what I mean? And then I didn't get a tip.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You'd think he would overtip if he was trying to keep his conversation.
Yeah. Aerosmith is the worst band in the whole freaking world. They can suck my ass. So that's anyway.
He may be a hot old lady, but that's just rude.
Yeah, I was super mad about that. And I was
not
just
okay.
like, yeah, I was like, damn. I was like, for a freaking really famous musician, and he was getting the key to the city that weekend or whatever. I was like, fuck you, Steven Tyler. I was like, oh my God, I hope you're solo. And he just recorded that solo album. I was like, I hope it tanks. And it was actually really good.
We knew the drummer in that band. Actually, we knew the whole band.
She was our drummer, and she left us for Steven Tyler.
That's true. That's how we lost our drummer.
You just glossed over
I forgot about that.
It was a good album, I got to admit. Anyway, so that was Steven Tyler. So that ruined my whole thing for Steven Tyler. And then I drove Mike Vrabel, who he's not one of my heroes, but I actually didn't even know who he
Tennessee
is.
Titans head football coach.
Okay.
Well, see, I didn't know that. And he's like 7
Me
feet
either.
tall, And he's like,
Just a big Ohio
just
fuck.
huge. He's just huge.
Yeah.
And my wife is actually from Massachusetts, and he used to play for the Patriots. So he gets in the car, and it was after a Justin Timberlake concert. I'll never forget this. I picked him right outside the diner, and his wife was in the back with him. And I was just trying to make his wife laugh, because like that's usually my go-to. Like if there's a
So
couple
he
in the
went to
car.
this Justin Timberlake concert, is what you're saying.
It was his first week in town. And he went to the Justin Timberlake concert because he's super
You like
gay.
him a
hear
lot
that?
now, though.
Did you hear that?
You like him as head coach
I
now?
just think it's interesting.
Oh,
it's
I was just
it's
joking.
super
I said because he's super gay. No. But anyway, he's a really nice guy, and he has like this northeastern like attitude that I really missed about the Northeast. Like they
Okay.
just kind of like people just fuck with each other. You know,
Yeah.
they just kind of like mess. You
Super
just
mean, yeah.
just sort of mean, just to say shit. You know, and so he's like messing with me. You know, and he's just like, oh, so you like sports? And I was just like, no. I was just like doing it back to him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't even like football? I was like, nothing about millionaires colliding excites me. And his wife's laughing, so I'm like thinking that I'm doing
killing
well.
right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm killing. And like he's like, what about the Titans? And I was like, well, my wife's from Massachusetts, so she likes the Patriots. And he goes, well, who's your favorite player from the Patriots? And I said, Tom Brady, obviously. You know, at the time, Tom Brady was still there. And he goes, well, does she know a guy who used to play for the Patriots named Mike Vrabel? And I said, well, I don't know, because she's my wife, not my fucking twin, so I'm not channeling her right now. I'm like, I think I'm killing it. You know what I mean?
And the
I'm
wife
like,
is in tears at this point, I'm sure, just
Yeah.
dying laughing.
She was laughing so hard. She was rolling her eyes at everything he was saying and laughing at everything I was saying. So I was like, this is perfect, you know? Perfect recipe for a good tip. So then he goes, well, if you call your wife right now and she knows who Mike Vrabel is, I'll give you $50, right? And my wife worked for the oncology clinic at Vanderbilt, where she had to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to go save cancer people's lives. And I was like, yeah, I'm calling her right now because I need $50 that bad. So I called her up in the middle. It was like 1:30 in the morning. And she was like, hello? And I'm like, hi, sorry to bother you. Do you know a guy who used to play for the Patriots named Mike Vrabel? And she goes, yeah, you mean the head coach of the Tennessee Titans? And I was like, oh, and it says his name is Mike in the app, and he's asking about a guy named Mike. But I smoke so much weed, I'm high as a kite. I shouldn't even be driving a car right now. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm like so fucking embarrassed in that moment. I was just like, I gotta go. So I hang up the phone. And I was like, you're the head coach of the Tennessee Titans? And he's like, yeah. I was like, you owe me $50, idiot. I was like, what are you doing?
Did he pay you?
Yeah. We drove up to his house. He has like a really nice fucking house.
I'm sure.
He has one of these houses
Where
where
does
it's
he
like Forest Hill. It's
You
like
got the address?
I probably could find it. But he has one of those houses where it's like two driveways around both
yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice. And so we went around this driveway, and I'm dropping him off, and his wife gets out and walks in the house, and he starts to walk to the house, and then he just like, he pedals back, and he goes around my side of the car, pulls out a wad of cash, finds a 50, and hands it to me. I was like, go Titans. I was strapped for cash in that moment. I was, we were actually, she wasn't my wife yet at the time. We were trying to pay for the wedding. That's why I was driving for Uber, and also why I worked at Cock of the Walk.
Yeah.
So I've
Cock
had
of the Walk.
some weird, odd jobs since I've lived here in Tennessee, but it's been fun, and I've met so many cool celebs in that time. I actually met a famous rapper at Cock of the Walk. I can't remember his name now, but he was a nice guy. He gave a good tip.
So what do you have coming up? What are you gonna do? You're just gonna keep touring? I know you're gonna be a dad soon.
Gonna be a dad. I haven't been touring since before COVID.
Okay.
I've stopped doing traveling for comedy. I've
Okay.
stopped caring so much about comedy, really. I'm actually not a great guest for a podcast. So
Comedy
sorry.
sucks.
Yeah, sorry that you have me here. I think, I honestly, I don't want to talk bad about comedians, but it's just, I feel like a lot of comedians don't know how badly they are being screwed by doing it. I don't know how to explain that. Because like comedians haven't gotten like a raise at clubs since like the 80s.
I hear you.
Yeah, like feature.
Same thing.
Yeah, feature acts and MCs get paid the same that they got paid in the 80s. So that's like bad. So I couldn't like afford to keep doing comedy unless I was selling merch after every show. And I sold like wild merch. I used to make pickles and sell pickles after the show. Sold
Fun.
pickled jalapenos. So I'd blow glass as well. So I would make glass pickles that you could smoke out of and sell those as well with the other pickles. So it's like you can either buy real pickles or glass pickles.
When he said blow glass, I immediately thought Todd Glass in my head. I was like, whoa, hey.
And you know what? At one point in my career, I probably would have.
He gave me $50 too.
I've met him a few times. He's a really nice guy, but
Yeah,
I don't
he's
know if I
cool.
would have done that. But hey, maybe. There was a time when I would have opened for Bill Cosby. I was desperate, you know. I was ready to do anything to be touring and to be opening
Yeah.
for someone, you know. Now I'm kind of at a point where it's like I've done a lot of comedy. I've had a lot of fun. There's so much more to do online now
Yeah.
than
Yeah, for sure.
than like busting your ass live.
Definitely a new business model.
Yeah, and also like you notice that there's a lot of people who start online and they get to do a lot more than you're doing live, even though they've never done anything live. And you're like, okay, well, so there's clearly some weird way that these people are circumventing everything that I've worked for a decade. So I better start doing something on that end.
Right.
You know, so I've been telling people for like 3 years now that I'm working on something to do online, but it's like hard for me to do stuff online. I had an instance where I wrote a tweet that got me a lot of death threats.
Awesome.
And I was on a petition.
Do you want to repeat it here?
Well, it's not nice. It was, and the thing is, at the time, I wasn't political at all. It was like I was just watching the inauguration of Donald Trump, and it was January 23rd or January 20th of 2017. I'll never forget. I wrote because I was watching the screen and I was writing tweets about every person that I saw, you know, just like I was pretty big on Twitter too. I was like, this is back before there was like people on Twitter with like millions of followers.
Right.
I had about 20,000 followers at the time, probably like 30 actually, and that was like huge, you know. So like people thought I was famous when I like really wasn't, you know. And so I was just desperate for more fans and more whatever. I was doing a little bit of stuff for Comedy Central, you know what I mean? They were using my tweets, and I was like, oh, I'm contributing to Comedy Central, whatever. But like I never got paid by them or anything. I wrote this one tweet. I said, Barron Trump looks like a very handsome date rapist to be. He was wearing this like awesome suit that I was jealous of, to be honest with you. It had these gold buttons, and I'm like a suit guy, so I was like, I love that suit, and fuck this rich kid. So I was like, I just wrote this dumb tweet. Didn't really mean anything by it. It got picked up by like InfoWars. My face was the front of InfoWars,
Nice.
wearing this shirt. Actually, I looked exactly like
Appreciate
this.
that. Yeah. We'll dub Alex Jones in over the back of this.
It was
post.
bad. It was so bad, and geez, it was. I don't want to get into like the politics of it, but there was a lot of people that wrote a lot of things about me that were like very clearly untrue, and also like out of context, and they did like zero research on me and everything. And then I was an InfoWars guy before that, so like seeing my face on it and having them bash me, I was like, oh no. I was like, are all the conspiracy theories fake now? I was like, this fucking sucks. My whole world like crumbled. And it's been hard for me to like really post real content of my work online now, because like people kind of came after my whole YouTube. They just started downvoting everything, just because they didn't like that one thing I did.
That's the drill nowadays.
Yeah, and I mean it goes both ways too. And and this is the other thing, is I was so non-political at the time. I was like a libertarian, you know what I mean? And all these like liberal people, like there's a whole community of black poets that like went against me. They were like, they all like said a bunch of shit about me and then blocked me on Twitter and everything. So it was like, I was getting shit from both sides. It was like, there was no winning for me at all. So it's just been rough for me to like really get back into posting my actual comedic content and things that I like hope make people happy online, because it's just like, there's just so much hate out there. And I'm like scared. I'm like literally scared.
I get it.
So, but I'm working on it though. I've been recording a lot of videos and things at home and stuff that I like am getting ready to post at some point. So once this kid is here, that's going to be another new fear that I'm going to have to
Once you have the
overcome.
kids, you'll have plenty of time for all that.
Well, I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad. I don't know if I'm going to have time, but I'm also like afraid of like what might happen to my kid. I mean, people came after my girlfriend at the time, who's now my
I see
wife.
what
You
you're
know what I
saying,
mean?
yeah.
It was scary. People are like savages online.
They really are. I got a DM recently, where this guy said he was going to kill me, and he sent it's a beautiful, beautiful painting of this lady dead and her cat's eating her guts.
Why? But why? What did you do that made
I have
him?
no idea. No, I don't know who it is. I don't know. He
Well,
just
that's fucking nuts.
hates me. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's literally insane.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
But I mean, most of those people who are going to come at you online are kind of mentally unstable.
And they also reside online.
I also
for the
went
most
through-
part.
well, so this is the thing. It's
Yep.
like I don't mind people being online saying, "Go kill yourself."
Yeah.
That's hey, I get that. I've been getting that for a decade, even from my own friends and family. But to be like, so this is what happened with my thing was like, so there was like a petition on change.org for like that lady from SNL to get fired. And I was kind of like looped in with that. So because everyone thought I worked for Comedy Central since they were using some of my stuff.
Right.
And because Alex Jones wrote all this shit about me that wasn't true. And so they started like finding my addresses and my family
Yeah, it's
members'
scary.
addresses and like sending me info being like, how's your grandma doing, asking by name. And I was like, well, she died 5 years ago, so she's not doing so well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were implying
Right.
that like
Yeah.
they know stuff about me.
Yeah.
And they would and one other guy gave me my uncle's address where I used to live at. And I had to call my uncle and be like, "Hey, man, like I know you have guns and stuff, so just like keep those at
Keep
the
'em
ready."
loaded.
Yeah, because like these people are like insane. I didn't know anything about political craziness until then.
Right.
Yeah,
Life was
yeah.
all just fun and comedy
Yeah.
up until that moment.
Steven, tell everyone where they can find you online and so
Yeah.
that they can be a part of the next cancellation.
if you follow me on Twitter, I mean, you're gonna see me just saying some dumb shit. Normally, I used to be on Twitter much more. Now I'm not so much, and even on Instagram, I don't really post anything funny anymore. Now it's just like pictures of me.
Well, this is just the saddest ending of a podcast.
I'm so.
Where can you find you? Nowhere.
Yeah,
I
please
am
don't look
literally
for me.
Nowhere.
Please don't follow me. Don't look for me. You're never gonna. If you find me, congratulations. I'll call the cops.
You'll have to come to Nashville to see him live
Yeah.
for 6 weeks, and then he's done.
And then I'm done. I've been telling podcasts that this is my last podcast and I'm quitting comedy for 3 years now.
I got a buddy who quits music every year, and it has. It's been 35 years. So,
Yeah, I'm that guy. You know,
There you go.
I'm having fun. I'm enjoying life. I like being
Yeah.
around. If anybody enjoys what I'm doing, that's fine. If you want to talk about stuff with me, that's fine. Don't follow me for like the vainness that you follow other comedians that you really like. Like, don't like look for me in the same way that you look for like a Kevin Hart or something. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? I'm not that guy. I don't
You're
want
like
fans.
the exact opposite of a Kevin Hart.
I don't want fans at all. Get away from me. Leave me
That sounds
alone.
like Dick Stanhope.
I'm probably a lot like him.
Stephen Spinola, the new Doug Stanhope.
Thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah,
This
man.
is great.
Thanks for letting me talk my head off. I don't talk about anything in like any concise way. I just went off on like a million
It was fucking
tangents.
great.
That's
sorry.
This is
We're
fucking
the same way.
great.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks for having me.
Stephen Spinola is my favorite comedian.
Yeah, that dude was funny. Love the Alex Jones story, wild stuff, you know. But let's never do this over Zoom again. No more intros and outros over Zoom. We forgot. So,
And also, this is like our 156th time. And
case in point, right there. Terrible. Anyway, enjoy your groceries.
don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Did we cheers yet? I need a beer.
Enjoy your cigarette.